Hey guys, tonight we begin not with a sword fight or a royal feast, but with something far more intimate. And well, a little smellier. We're re-stepping into a medieval village, narrow streets, crooked rooftops, and the comforting scent of livestock, wood smoke, and something less identifiable wafting mysteriously from the gutters. The year is 1340. The place. Let's just call it somewhere damp and very European. You open your eyes to a one-room cottage, low ceiling, straw-stuffed mattress poking you in unfortunate places and a faint draft kissing your ankles. You're already freezing and you haven't even stepped outside yet. There's a chicken watching you from the corner. Dante asks why it is indoors. In this world, everything is indoors. People, animals, smells, and secrets. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's drifting off around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan. For that soft background hum, and let's us ease into tonight, a journey together. You sit up in your linen shirt, which smells like smoke sweat, and yesterday's effort to pretend you're clean. Your cloak folded near the door is stiff with last week's rain. The floor is dirt. The walls are made of something that wishes it were wood mud and a bit of hope. Welcome to your medieval morning. And yes, it smells. The idea of morning freshness hasn't been invented yet. Neither has deodorant, toothpaste, or the notion that perhaps, just perhaps, you shouldn't share a living space with a goat. But you do. Everyone does. The goat, by the way, is named Agnes, and she's been farting in her sleep. There's a chamber pot under the bed full enough that you'll need to dump it soon. You hope the neighbor isn't walking by when you toss it out the window? Medieval custom says you shout, "Gardel l'eau," watch out for the water before you pour. But not everyone warns. Some folks enjoy a surprise. Outside, the streets are lined with puddles that are probably not just rain. You step carefully. The air smells like baked bread, horse manure, burning peat, and something faintly medieval and mysterious. That is the village perfume ode to 14th century. You walk past your neighbor who nods good morning and scratches something in his beard that may or may not be alive. Personal grooming. Let us just say it. It's not priority 1 or 2 or 5. Baths are rare. Soap is rarer, and good-smelling soap. That is basically witchcraft. Now, before we go further, let me reassure you, people aren't dirty because they want to be. They read dirty because they believe cleanliness is dangerous. We'll get to that later. For now, just know that bathing is not a daily or even weekly event. You wash your hands if you remember. Maybe your face, maybe clothes. Those are cleaned once a month if you are fancy. Otherwise you wear layers and hope the smell stays downwind. Underwear. Not a widespread concept. Linen shifts act as the closest thing to a barrier between you and the rest of your wardrobe. And when that shirt starts walking by itself, that is, when you know it as laundry day. The town square is bustling, bakers shouting prices. A monk preaching abstinence beside a cheese seller shouting louder. A dog steals a sausage, and everyone cheers because the dog is the cleanest thing on the street. You walk past the bathhouse, boarded shut, condemned by the local priest who claims hot water invites the devil. Or worse, the plague. But more on that later. Right now, you are headed to the well with a wooden bucket. Your hands are chapped, your breath steams in the cold, and as you lift the bucket, your nose catches a familiar note. Ah yes, someone has emptied their chamber pot right beside the well again. Delicious. Still you carry on. Because this is life, you were born here, and if you are lucky, you will die here, in your bed, surrounded by family. If you are unlucky, well, you all die from bad meat, infected blisters, or someone else's sneeze. The Black Death hasn't arrived yet, but rumors are swirling. People pray, carry charms, and toss herbs on the fire to purify the air. Does it work? Historians still argue whether medieval air purification rituals had any real effect. Spoiler alert, probably not. As the sun climbs, the smells deepen. Sun-warmed thatch has a musky sweetness. The Tanner S shop reeks of urine and lime, and somewhere someone is boiling cabbage like it owes them money. The medieval world is textured raw and gloriously unfiltered. It's beautiful in a rough sort of way, and deeply, profoundly human. You find yourself standing at the edge of the market. The world stretches out before you, full of mystery mud, and the occasional rat wearing an expression of casual ownership. You pull your cloak tighter, take a deep breath, and instantly regret it. And so your day begins. No soap, no shower, no shame. Just you, your goat, and a world where hygiene is less about sparkle and more about survival. You shuffle back home, bucket, sloshing cloak, flapping like a tired flag of surrender. And all the while, that little question itches the back of your mind. Why doesn't anyone just take a nice hot bath? Ah, my dear listener, therein lies one of the medieval world. More fragrant mysteries. You see, once upon a very long time ago, bathing was perfectly respectable back in the early Middle Ages, especially in monasteries and among the few folk still clinging to Roman habits. A warm soak wasn't just tolerated, it was encouraged. Cleanliness, they said, was next to godliness, or at least next to not stinking like a turnip patch after a rainstorm. But then, something changed. By the time we arrive in your current muddy century, good old 1340, the general opinion has shifted drastically. Now taking a full-body bath isn't just suspicious. It's downright dangerous. The main culprit, fear. Deep cold. Superstition. Soaked fear. People began to believe that hot water opened the pores, and what flowed in through those open pores they thought wasn't a relaxation or cleanliness. No, it was illness, mischief. Even death itself, the body they claimed was a sealed temple, and bathing in warm water turned that temple into a wide-open gate for evil humors. Bad air and the sort of invisible danger that made people drop dead without warning. And the timing couldn't have been worse, because just as this belief was taking hold, so was the plague. Yes, the Black Death is still a few years out in full force, but word spreads fast and fear spreads faster. You hear tales from across the sea, entire towns gone, boils and fever and despair. And if you had just taken a steamy soak in a communal bathhouse, well, you might as well be inviting the plague in for tea. Even doctors, such as they were, warned against bathing too often. They claimed it weakened the body, made the blood too thin, loosened the sinews, and in fairness, their definition of doctor included anyone with a robe and a book written in Latin. So folks stopped bathing. Not because they were lazy, not because they were wild-eyed medieval goblins who didn't care, but because they believed with every fiber of their lumpy wool tunic that staying dry kept them safe, holier, healthier, and maybe just a little more modest, because yes, let's just talk about modesty. Being naked in any form was deeply suspect, being naked in hot water. That was practically sinful. What started as a concern about disease quickly tangled itself into a web of moral panic. By the 13th and 14th centuries, many public bathhouses had gained a reputation for being say not entirely focused on hygiene. Some were more spa than sanctuary, others more brothel than bath. And the church, always keen to clamp down on what it deemed occasions of sin, began to frown, then scowl, then outright condemn. One bishop famously referred to bathhouses as temples of filth and temptation. That might be a little dramatic, but you know bishops, they love a strong metaphor. And so the bathhouses began to vanish. Shut down by decree, abandoned by fear, or quietly converted into bakeries. Because apparently, if you can to clean your body, you might as well clean your bread. Now, you might ask, did anyone bathe at all? Yes, occasionally. The nobility still indulged now and then. If you were rich enough, powerful enough, or just stubborn enough, you might have your servants haul buckets of boiling water into your chamber, pour it into a wooden tub, sprinkle in a few herbs, lavender, sage, maybe some rosemary, and have yourself a nice stew of a bath. You'd sit in that water quietly steaming like a dignified cabbage while the fire crackled nearby and your linen shift clung damply to your knees. It wasn't a luxurious, but it was something. And if you were married, maybe your spouse joined in. Because nothing says romance like sharing slightly used bath water. But for most people, the poor, especially, that wasn't an option. Water was hauled by hand, wood was scarce, and tubs were more likely to be feeding pigs than humans. So instead of full baths, people developed alternatives. We'll get to those later. For now, just imagine this. A world where the very thing we now associate with health and refreshment, warm water, soft soap, a gentle soak, is viewed with deep suspicion. A world where keeping clean might be the dirtiest thing you could do. And here you are standing in that world, your hands raw from the cold, your feet numb inside wool-wrapped shoes, and your bucket of well water now sloshing dangerously close to your last dry sock. You're not just living in the past. You are living in a time when bathing could get you judged, shunned, or very, very ill. And you haven't even made it to lunch yet. You walk past the bathhouse again, just as the bell tolls noon from the crooked tower at the edge of town. And for a moment you wonder, what was it like back when people actually used these places? So let's rewind the clock. Not far. Just a century or two back. Before the doors were shuttered, before the priests got nervous, before the bathhouse became a symbol of sin. Back when it was just normal. You step inside a memory. It's a chilly spring morning and the public bathhouse is bustling. A low stone building near the market square with smoke rising from the chimney and a faint scent of rosemary in the air. Though, let's be honest, the rosemary S doing its best. Inside their S, steam, soft light, the clatter of wooden buckets, and the murmur of voices. This is a place where people come, not just to bathe, but to socialize, to share news, to gossip. It is half spa, half town square. Men and women often bathe separately, but not always. In places like southern Germany or northern Italy, mixed bathing is tolerated, sometimes even fashionable. Historians still argue whether these bathhouses were truly innocent or just very polite, cover stories for other kinds of togetherness. But whatever the truth, one thing is clear. People used them. There are large communal tubs, hot from the fire beneath the stones. Steam curls around the beams overhead. You ease into the water, and for a moment you understand. This isn't just hygiene, it's a relief. Your back aches from digging in the fields. Your fingers are cracked from the cold, but here in the warmth, everything softens. Even your soul. Attendants bring herbal oils. Some even offer massages. A tray of fruit passes by. You hear laughter, too much laughter, some would say. And in the corner, two monks from the local abbey are trying very hard not to look impressed by a particularly well-sung ballad drifting from the women's side of the bath. It's lively, it's joyful. It is suspicious. Because, of course, with pleasure comes disapproval. Church officials begin to murmur. Temptation, they say. Nudity breeds sin, and frankly, it often does. There are reports of bathhouses doubling as brothels, deals struck in steam. Rendezvous in the rinsing rooms, and eventually the moral panic gains traction. Preachers warn of damnation by hot water. Public nudity becomes a sin. Bathing is no longer just a bodily concern, it's a spiritual threat, and one by one the bathhouses fall. Some are closed by decree, others burn, accidentally or not. A few try to adapt. They add stricter hours, separate tubs. A resident priest, if you can believe it, to watch the water for signs of mischief, but it's no use. By the time you reborn, yes, you in your straw-stuffed mattress and your suspiciously damp shoes, bathing is no longer communal. It's not even common. The bathhouse is boarded up. Its walls echo with silence, and the only thing steaming inside now is regret. You pass it daily. You wonder what it was like, and maybe on especially cold nights you dream of warm water and rosemary oil. But you never say it out loud. Because admitting you miss the bathhouse is admitting something dangerous, that you long for a life before fear. Before judgment, before the world decided that scrubbing your elbows might scrub away your soul. Still the memory lingers, a world of warmth, water, and whispers. And even now, as you trudge home with your bucket and your aching feet, you feel it. The ghost of the bathhouse steaming in the corner of your mind, fragrant with forbidden cleanliness. Ever wonder what it's like to bathe like a lord with servants and herbs? But no privacy, you're leaving the village. Bathhouse behind its steam and scandals fading as you trudge up a hill toward the lord's manor. The air is sharper here, laced with wood smoke and the faint sweetness of hay. The manor looms, its stone walls grim, its windows narrow, like suspicious eyes. You're no longer just a peasant scratching fleas. You've been summoned maybe to deliver a bushel of turnips. Maybe because the Lord's in a mood. Either way, you're about to witness a noble bath, a ritual as grand as it is. Awkward, the door creaks open and you step into a world where cleanliness is a status symbol, but solitude is a myth. The mainstream fact is telling. In the 14th century, wealthy nobles bathed more often than peasants, but not by much. Perhaps once a week in wooden tubs filled by servants. You follow a maid, her arms straining under a steaming cauldron into a chamber warmed by a crackling fire. A massive tub lined with linen to prevent splinters dominates the room. The lord, a man with a beard. Like a bird, his nest sits on a stool. Barking orders. Servants scurry, pouring water scented with rosemary and chamomile, the aroma fighting a losing battle against the room. Its musty tang. You stand in the corner, clutching your turnips, trying not to stare as the lord strips to his undergarments, his belly a testament to too many feasts. You watch, half fascinated, half horrified, as the maid sprinkles dried herbs into the tub, the water turning a murky green. The quirky tidbit is bizarre. Some nobles believed bathing in wine could cure ailments from gout to gloom. A 1370s chronicle from Florence describes a duke who soaked in barrels of Chianti, hoping to purge his humors. Imagine you tasked with hauling vats of vintage for his lordship is. Spa day, only to see him emerge redder than the grapes, and no healthier. You stifle a laugh, but the lordess glare pins you like a moth. You focus on the tub, its linen liner sagging, and wonder how many servants it takes to keep this show running. Joke number 1. Why did the noble love his bath? Because it was the only time he could smell better than his hounds. You bite your lip, the thought of those slobbering dogs in the courtyard making you grateful for your spot indoors. The bath is a production, a parade of privilege. Servants pour more water, their faces blank, though you catch a flicker of resentment in the maid's eyes. The lord climbs in groaning as the heat hits his bulk, displacing water onto the floor. You sidestep the puddle, your boots still caked from the village mud, and marvel at the effort. Heating water, hauling it, herbing it up, it's a half-day's work for a soak that'll last 10 minutes. Historians still argue whether noble baths were about hygiene or display. Some say lords bathed to flaunt wealth, their tubs a flex of power in a world where water was work. Others argue it was health-driven, a nod to ancient Greek and Roman practices. You're not sure, but the lord's tub surrounded by servants feels more like theater than therapy. His wife enters her gown trailing and dips a cloth to wipe his shoulders. You avert your eyes, realizing privacy is not on the menu. The room is crowded. Servants, family, even a minstrel strumming in the corner. his lute off-key. It's less a bath and more a public hearing with you as the unwilling audience. You shift your turnips heavy and catch a whiff of the Lordis. Bathwater. The herbs are losing ground to the scent of well. Lord joke number 2. What's a noble's bath like a hot tub? A crowd and a smell that says, I'm rich, but not that rich. The Lord grumbles about the king as latest tax, his voice booming, oblivious to the servant's rolled eyes. You notice the linen liner meant to keep the tub smooth is fraying, bits of wood peeking through splinters. You think are a great equalizer, noble or peasant, nobody wants a backside full of them. You almost feel sorry for him until he snaps at the maid for spilling a drop. The bath ends abruptly. The Lord heaves himself out, water sloshing, and a servant wraps him in a sheet that has seen better days. You re-ushered out your turnips unacknowledged, the maid muttering about his lordship, delicate skin. Back in the courtyard, the cold bites, but you go oddly grateful for it. The manor is. Warmth was stifling its rituals. Absurd. Nobles, you realize, aren't much cleaner than you, just louder about it. The village sprawls below it, smells and sounds familiar now. You trudge downward the bathhouse, esteem a distant memory. The Lord's tub. A reminder that wealth buys water, but not dignity. Joke number 3, why don't nobles bathe alone? Because even their fleas deserve an audience, you smile, the thought carrying you through the mud. The noblesse bath was a spectacle, a fleeting escape from a world where dirt was destiny. But it's fragile, this luxury built on servants, sweat, and superstitions that'll soon turn baths into taboos. You're back in peasant territory. Now, the manor's glow fading, the village's grit realer than ever. Your own bath, if you dare call it that, waits in a bucket by the hearth, cold and uninviting, the days unfolding and the next chore, probably involving pigs or worse, looms like a bad dream, ready to plunge into a river so cold it to make a polar bear whimper. You're trudging away from the Lord's manor. Its stone walls a fading smudge against the hill. Your turnips still clutched like a grudge. The village hums below, smoke curling from chimneys, the air thick with manure and morning frost. You're a peasant again, your tunic stiff, your skin itching from the noble's steamy spectacle, bathing's a luxury. You can't afford, not in a tub with herbs or a bathhouse with gossip, but the stream at the village edge calls its water glinting like a dare. You reheaded there, not for cleanliness, but because your neighbor, Wat the farmer, insists it's so good for the soul. You doubt it, but Wat's got a goat you need to borrow. So here you are. The mainstream fact is stark. Most medieval peasants bathed in rivers or streams, if they bathed at all, because hauling and heating water was a chore for the desperate or the rich. You reach the bank, the grass slick under your boots, the stream rushing its surface flecked with leaves, and something you hope isn't tea from the miller, is privy. Wat's already there, knee-deep, his tunic hitched up his goat, bleating on the shore like it knows better. The water is freezing, fed by mountain runoff, and you wince just looking at it. Wat grins his teeth, a patchwork, and waves you in. Cleans the sins right off, he says, splashing like a kid at a county fair. You hesitate, your toes curling in your boots, and wonder if sin's worth this kind of punishment. You kick off your boots, the mud sucking at them, and roll up your tunic. The quirky tidbit is odd. Some peasants believed river bathing could cure warts if you dunked at dawn and prayed to St. Blaise. A 1350s record from Devon mentions a man who swore his warts vanished after a dip, though his neighbors said it was the ale talking. You glance at your hands, spotting a bump. That might be a wart or just bad luck, and mutter a half-hearted prayer. The goat stares unimpressed as you wade in. The cold hits like a slap, stealing your breath, your legs numbing faster than a dentist's shot. You gasp, flailing, and Wat laughs, his voice echoing off the trees. Joke number 1. Why did the peasant bathe in the river? because it was cheaper than catching the plague from a bathhouse. You grit your teeth, the water swirling around your shins, and grab a handful of reeds to scrub. They were slimy. Not exactly soap, but they all do. What's he splashing nearby, scrubbing his armpits, the goat now chewing your boot, like it says a delicacy. You snatch it back, cursing, and dunk your arms. The cold biting. This ain't no noble-est tub, no lavender or linen liners. Here it is you, a river and a questionable decision, the kind that makes you miss your bucket back home. Cloudy as it was. Historians still argue whether peasants bathed regularly or just endured the dirt. Some say rural folk with access to streams were cleaner than city dwellers, wading through sewage. Others insist bathing was rare, reserved for festivals or fevers. You're not sure, but Watt's enthusiasm, his face red from the cold, suggests he's either devout or deranged. You scrub your neck, the reeds scraping, and feel a fleeting sense of victory. The dirt loosening, though the smell still there. A mix of sweat and something the goat is contributing. You glance upstream where a woman is washing her laundry. Her hands raw, her curses creative. The river, it's a multitasker, bath, laundry, and probably the village. It's toilet too. Joke number 2. What is a peasant? It's bath. A dip, a shiver, and a goat stealing your shoes. You laugh, the sound swallowed by the rush of water, and dunk your head. The cold shocking your scalp, your hair matted with straw, floats briefly, then clings like a drowned rat. What is singing now? Bawdy tune about a knight and a milkmaid, his voice off-key but cheerful. You were tempted to join, but your teeth are chattering, your fingers blue. This bath is less about hygiene and more about survival. A quick dunk to say you tried before. The winter makes it impossible. You climb out, dripping the grass, freezing underfoot, and grab your tunic, its crustiness almost comforting now. The goat bleats, eyeing your turnips, and you shoe it, your boots slipping on. Watts is still in the water, splashing like he's auditioning for a miracle. You shake your head, your skin tingling, and feel oddly alive if half frozen. The village waits its smells and chores, unchanged, but you are a touch cleaner, or at least less muddy. Joke number 3. Why'd the goat skip the bath? Because even it knew the river was a bad idea. You smirk, slinging your turnips over your shoulder, and trudge back toward the village, the stream's chill lingering like a warning. Watt calls after you, promising to lend the goat if you join him tomorrow. You wave, lying through your chattering teeth, and vow to stick to your bucket next time. This river dip was no spa day, no noble-less herb-scented soak. It was raw, real, a peasant. Gamble with cold and courage. You are back on the path, now. The village, a smoke in sight, your body shivering, but your soul maybe a little lighter. The day rolling on, and the next task, probably herding pigs or dodging Agnes S. ladle, looms like a cloud. But for now, you're alive, damp and dreaming of a world where baths done to bite back. Think a damp rag can pass for a shower. You are trudging back from the river, your tunic damp your boots, squelching the village. A smoke curling ahead like a promise of warmth. That freezing dip with Watt and his thieving goat left you shivering, half clean, and swearing off streams for good. The sun's climbing, but the chill clings your skin, prickling with goosebumps and grit. You are a peasant, not a lord with a fancy tub, and the bathhouse is a distant dream. Back at your hut, a bucket by the hearth waits its water cold and cloudy. But it is your best shot at hygiene. You're about to discover the medieval sponge bath, a trick that asks less about sparkling clean and more about not scaring the chickens. The mainstream fact is practical. By the late Middle Ages, sponge baths, wiping down with a damp cloth, were the go-to for most peasants, especially when rivers froze or fear of bathing kept tubs empty. You duck into your hut, the air thick with smoke and the faint whiff of last week is a stew. The floors, dirt packed hard by years of boots and bad luck. You grab a linen rag stiff as a tax collector, smile and dip it in the bucket. The water is icy, stinging your fingers, but you are determined. You wring the rag droplets, pattering like rain, and start with your face, scrubbing at grime that's practically family by now. It's slow, methodical. A far cry from the Lord's. Herb-scented soak. You move to your neck, the cloth scraping, and feel a fleeting sense of progress. The quirky tidbit is strange. Some peasants used vinegar-soaked rags, believing it killed bad airs that caused disease. A 1360s letter from a Norfolk monk describes wiping his arms with vinegar to purge miasmas, though he admitted it just made him smell like a pickled herring. Picture you dabbing your armpits with a rag that stings your nose, hoping it's fending off plague, while Agnes next door sniffs and mutters about your fancy ways. You grimace the vinegar, stang sharp, but keep going, your skin tingling like you've angered a beehive. It's not luxury, but it's better than nothing. Joke number 1. Why did the peasant love sponge baths? Because they were quicker than freezing in a river or sinning in a bathhouse. You chuckle, the sound soft in the dim hut, and wipe your chest, the rag turning gray with dirt. This isn't a full bath, not even close. It's a compromise, a way to dodge the church. Warnings about hot water and the villages. Whispers about witches. You focus on the high-traffic areas. As a modern doc might say, face, hands, armpits. Maybe feet, if you're feeling ambitious. The rest, well, your tunic. Linen and linenness. Supposed to soak up the worst, right? You are not fooling anyone, least of all yourself. Historians still argue whether sponge baths were effective or just a feel-good ritual. Some say they kept skin infections at bay, especially with vinegar. Mild antibacterial kick. Others argue they were symbolic, a nod to cleanliness in a world where filth was fate. You're not sure, but the rag-s doing something, even if it's just making you feel less like a walking compost heap. You pause, dipping the rag again, and notice a flea hopping across your wrist. You flick it cursing and wonder if vinegar works on those little vampires. Spoiler, it doesn't. The hut is quiet, save for the hearth. Crackle and the distant bleat of what? Goat, probably plotting its next theft. Joke number 2. What is a medieval shower? A rag, a bucket, and a prayer. Your fleas done to unionize, you smirk. Moving to your hands, the rag now. A patchwork of grime, the bucket is. Water is sludge, but you are committed. Or maybe just stubborn. You scrub your knuckles raw from hauling turnips and think of the noble bath its servants and splendor. Here you are your own servant, and the only splendor is the fire's glow. Agnes pokes her head in her hair, a straw-tangled crown, and snorts. Wasting water again, she says, her ladle gleaming like a threat. You shrug, too cold to argue, and keep wiping your arms. Heavy, your patience thinner than the rag. The sponge bath. It's a ritual, a small rebellion against a world that says dirt. It's divine. You finish your feet. The cloth barely damp now, and toss it into the bucket, its splash echoing your re-cleaner. Sort of, though. A mirror would laugh at the thought. The hut feels warmer. Or maybe that's just your blood thawing. Joke number 3. Why is the sponge bath a secret? Because nobody wants to admit they are bathing with a dishcloth. You grin, pulling on your tunic, its crustiness familiar, almost comforting. The village outside hums carts, rattling voices rising the day, demanding your labor. You step to the door, the bucket left behind its water, a silent witness to your effort. This sponge bath was no river plunge, no noble soak, just a peasant's quiet fight against filth. You're back in the world. Now the village's smells and sounds unchanged, your skin a touch less gritty. The fire is dying, the hut. Shadows lengthening, and you feel a flicker of pride fleeting as a candle. You re-surviving, rag by rag, in a time when cleanliness is a gamble you play alone. The next chore, maybe mending a fence or dodging Agnes as gossip, waits like a tax. But for now, you are as clean as you all get, dreaming of a day when showers don't sting and fleas don't rule the roost. Ever tried washing your hair with eggs in a hut, colder than a tax collector's heart? You back in your village hut. The sponge bath, his damp rag, abandoned its bucket. A swamp of good intentions. The fire, slow-spitting embers, the air heavy with smoke, and the faint whiff of your neighbor. As stew. Or maybe that S. Just you. Your tunic's back on, crusty but familiar, and you are scratching your scalp where straw and fleas have made a cozy home. That river dip with what was a bust. And the Lord's fancy tub is a fairy tale, but your hair, matted like a bird, nest after a storm, demands attention. You're about to tackle a medieval hair washing session, and trust me, it has. Less shampoo commercial, more survival horror. The mainstream fact is grim. In the 14th century, most peasants washed their hair rarely using whatever was at hand, water ash or worse, because soap was harsh and water was a trek. You kneel by the hearth, the floor cold against your knees, and I a cracked bowl on the table, inside 2 eggs. A gift from Agnes. After you promised to fix her fence, you crack them, the yolks oozing there, smells sharp in the chilly air. You mix in a splash of water from the bucket, still murky from your sponge bath, and stir with a stick, creating a goopy mess that looks like a bad omelet. Your fingers dip in slimy and cold, and you smear it onto your scalp, wincing as it drips down your neck like a melted popsicle. The quirky tidbit is wild. Some medieval folks used beer to rinse their hair, believing it added shine and scared off lice. A 1380s record from a Bavarian monastery mentions monks pouring ale over their scalps, claiming it strengthened the roots. Picture you, rubbing flat beer into your hair, smelling like a tavern. After last call, hoping it will make you look less like a scarecrow. You stick with the eggs. Though their goo tangling in your hair, the cold making your teeth chatter. The hut, stim the fire's glow. Barely reaching the corners, and you feel like a mad alchemist brewing beauty from breakfast. Spoiler, it's not working. Joke number 1. Why did the peasant use eggs for shampoo? Because nothing says clean like a head that smells like brunch. You chuckle, the sound soft, and keep rubbing the yolk, crusting as it dries. This isn't about vanity. It's about not itching so much you scare the chickens. Your hair says a mess. Straw woven in from sleeping on that lumpy mattress, and you're pretty sure a flea just waved at you. The eggs are supposed to nourish. Or so Agnes swore, but they are just making your scalp feel like a failed baking experiment. You rinse with a cup of water, the cold stinging, and watch the yolk swirl into the bucket, leaving your hair damp and only slightly less gritty. Historians still argue whether medieval hair care was practical or pure desperation. Some say these home remedies, eggs, beer, vinegar, had mild cleansing properties, keeping scalps healthier than we think. Others argue it was futile with lice and dirt, winning every time you leaning toward the latter. Your hair still sticky, the fleas unbothered. You grab a comb carved from bone and sharper than what is wit and drag it through your tangles. It snags, pulling strands, and you curse under your breath. The comb's teeth are close set, designed to catch lice, but it feels like it is harvesting your patience instead. You work slowly, the fire crackling the hut, shadows dancing like ghosts of better hair days. Joke number 2. What is medieval hair care? A sticky mess and a comb that hates you. You smirk, yanking out a knot, and spot Agnes peering through the door. Her own hair a monument to neglect eggs. She says, smirking. Fancy folk use vinegar. You roll your eyes, tempted to toss the comb at her. Vinegar. No better, it to make you smell like a salad left out in the rain. You keep combing, each tug a small victory, though your scalps is screaming for mercy. The village outside hums carts, rattling dogs, barking, but you lay locked in this battle, your hair. A battlefield, your pride a casualty. The fire pops, sending a spark to the floor, and you stamp it out, your damp hair clinging to your neck. You redone, or Close enough. Your scalp as raw, your hand sticky, but you've dislodged some straw and maybe a flea or two. Joke number 3. Why'd the flea stick around? Because even it couldn't believe you thought eggs would help. You laugh, the sound echoing in the hut, and toss the comb aside. The eggs were a bust, the water gone, and your hair still a disaster. But in this world where dirt is a badge and cleanliness a sin, you've done what you can. You pull on a cap, hoping it hides the mess, and step toward the door. The village waits its smells and sounds, unchanged. Your hair, a testament to a time when shampoo was a dream and lice were family. You're surviving one sticky rinse at a time in a hut that's more dirt than dwelling, the day pushing on, and the next task, maybe herding pigs or dodging Agnes as vinegar advice, looms like a bad haircut. But for now, you're as clean as you will get. Your scalp tingling, your heart a little lighter. You are dreaming of a world where hair doesn't fight back and calms don't feel like medieval torture. Ever tried brushing your teeth with a twig that tastes like regret? You're still in your smoky hut. The eggy disaster of your hair-washing attempt clinging to your scalp like a bad decision. The fire is a faint glow. The air thick with the scent of damp straw. And yesterday, it's failure. Your cap, son, hiding your sticky hair, but now your mouth feels like a battlefield fuzzy from a breakfast of bread, hard enough to break a plow. Toothbrushes are centuries away. And the village doesn't have a dentist unless you count the barber who pulls teeth with pliers and a prayer. You're about to tackle medieval dental care, and trust me, it is. Less about pearly whites and more about keeping your teeth from staging a mutiny. The mainstream fact is sobering. In the 14th century, most people cleaned their teeth with rag sticks or nothing at all, relying on abrasive materials like salt or herbs to scrape off grime. You rummage by the hearth, finding a hazel twig. What swore by its end, frayed like a broom left out in the rain. You sit cross-legged on the dirt floor, the twig in hand, and chew the tip. The wood splintering its taste, bitter as a tax hike, the fibers splay out, forming a crude brush, and you rub it across your teeth, wincing as it scrapes your gums. Not crest, not even close, but what you've got. The twig, rough, digging into the crevices where last week is. Stew lingers, and you spit into the fire, the sizzle louder than your pride. The quirky tidbit is bizarre. Some villagers used burnt rosemary ash as toothpaste, believing it freshened breath and pleased the saints. A 1370s record from a Somerset monastery mentions monks rubbing their teeth with ash, claiming it purified the soul. Picture you smearing grey powder on your gums, looking like you lost a fight with a chimney, hoping St. Augustine approves. You stick with the twig, though its fibers catching on a molar that's looser than it should be. The thought of the barber. Pliers makes you shudder, so you scrub harder, the twig snapping, leaving splinters in your mouth. You spit again, the fire hissing, and wonder if clean teeth are worth this kind of torture. Joke number 1. Why'd the peasant chew a stick? Because it was cheaper than losing a tooth to the barber. Sgrip. You chuckle, the sound soft in the dim hut, and keep scrubbing your gums, stinging your breath. No fresher. Dental care here isn't about vanity. It's about not knocking out your neighbors when you yawn. You think of Agnes, who smiles more gaps than a broken fence, and vow to do better. You dip the twig in a pinch of salt stolen from the Lord. Table and try again. The salt burns, but it cuts through the fuzz, leaving your mouth raw, but slightly cleaner. It's progress, or at least the illusion of it, in a world where teeth are as disposable as turnips. Historians still argue whether medieval dental care worked or was just wishful thinking. Some say chewing sticks and herbs prevented decay, especially since diets had less sugar than a modern soda binge. Others argue infections were rampant with tooth loss, common by 30. You're not 30 yet, but that molar wobble says you were on borrowed time. You pause, spitting a splinter, and glance at the door, where Agnes' shadow looms. Still at it, she calls, her voice sharp. Try fennel seeds, keeps the devil out, Your mouth. You nod too sore to argue and pocket the twig. Its end, now a mangled mess. Fennel as tempting, but you are out of seeds and patience. Joke number 2. What is a medieval toothbrush? A stick, some salt, and a grudge against your gums. You smirk. Your mouth tingling, and stand the huts as chill, creeping through your tunic. The fire is nearly dead, the shadows long, but you're not done. You grab a scrap of linen, damp from your sponge bath, and rub your teeth, the cloth gritty with leftover ash. It's a team effort, twig salt rag, against a mouth that's more stew than smile. Outside the village hums carts, creaking dogs barking, but you are locked in this quiet war, your teeth a battlefield. Your hope as frayed as the twig. The rag's gray now, a testament to your effort, and you toss it into the bucket, its splash echoing. You are cleaner, barely, your gums throbbing like they've been to a joust. Agnes pokes her head in, chewing something, probably fennel, and snorts. Look like you fought a dragon, she says, her ladle gleaming. You grin, wincing, and feel that molar shift. Joke number 3. Why do the tooth stay loose? Because it knew the barber was waiting with a smile. You laugh. The sound fading and step toward the door. The village S. Chaos calling your mouth. S. Raw your twig. Trash, but you've done what you can. In a world where dentists are dreams and decay. S. A neighbor. This dental duel was no noble S. Soak, no river dip, just a peasant's. Fight against a mouth that's more foe than friend. You are back in the village. Now, the smoke and smells unchanged your teeth, a touch less fuzzy. The hut is behind you. The fire dead, and you feel a flicker of triumph, fleeting as a candle's glow. You, a surviving one, chew at a time in a time when a smile as a gamble, you play with sticks and salt. The day is marching on, and the next chore, maybe hauling wood or dodging Agnes S. advice, waits like a bad tooth, ready to ache. Ever held your nose in a crowd and wished for a medieval air freshener? You are stepping out of your hut, your teeth stinging from that twig-chewing ordeal, your hair, a sticky testament to eggs gone wrong. The village square sprawls ahead, a chaos of carts, pigs, and people all bathed in a fog. Of funk, manure sweat, and something that might be the butcher's lunch, your tunic S crusty, your mouth raw, but it's the smell that hits like a punch. In 1340, deodorant's a dream in the air. S a battlefield. You're about to discover the medieval art of scent survival, where a whiff of herbs is your only shield against a world that smells like it's been marinating in regret. The mainstream fact is clear. Medieval people used pomanders, small herb-filled balls worn around the neck, to mask body odor and street stenches. You fumble in your pouch, pulling out a leather sack tied with twine, a gift from Watt, after you lent him your shovel. Inside, dried lavender and cloves rattle their scent, sharp but fading. You hold it to your nose, inhaling deeply. The herbs cutting through the village reek like a breeze through a barn. It's no Febreze, but it's a lifeline. You tie it around your neck, the sack bouncing against your chest, and head toward the market, dodging a puddle that's more privy than rain. The quirky tidbit is wild. Some nobles used ambergris, a waxy substance from whale vomit, as a high-end perfume. A 1360s merchant S. ledger from Venice lists ambergris at prices higher than gold, prized for its musky scent. Picture you, a peasant, sniffing your humble pomander, while some Lord Abe's whale puke behind his ears, thinking he's at the height of class. You smirk, clutching your cloves, and weave through the crowd. The Pomander S scent fades fast, overwhelmed by the Tanner S. Yard, where hides stew in vats that smell like death, psalm pit. You press the sack to your nose, praying it holds, and wonder if whales ever smelled this bad. Joke number 1. Why did the peasant wear a pomander? Because it was the only way to survive the village without passing out? You chuckle, the sound lost in the market. Stin and sidestep a cart, piled with fish, their eyes glinting like accusations. The pomander. It's a small rebellion, a way to claim your nose in a world that assaults it. You spot Agnes, her own herb sachet, tucked into her apron, her ladle swinging like a war club. She nods, sniffing the air, and mutters, "Better than the butcher's breath." You agree silently and keep moving the pomander. Your only ally against the stench of unwashed neighbors and rotting scraps. Historians still argue whether pomanders were about hygiene or social status. Some say they were practical, their herbs like lavender and rosemary offering mild antibacterial benefits. Others argue they were a flex, a way to signal wealth or piety in a smelly world. You're not sure, but your pomander-s. Failing the cloves, no match for the fishmonger-s. Stall, you pause, pressing it to your nose, and catch a whiff of something worse, maybe the tavern-s slop bucket. Your stomach churns, but you keep walking the market. It's chaos. A reminder that everyone-s fighting the same nasal war. Even Agnes with her sachet looks like she's one bad smell away from surrender. Joke number 2. What's a medieval air freshener? A bag of herbs and a prayer you don't gag. You grin the pomander as scent fading and duck into a stall for a loaf of bread. Its crust hard as a cobble, the baker he his apron, a map of grease hands it over his breath, a cloud of onions and ale. You hold your pomander tighter, inhaling like it's oxygen, and hurry on. The village is a symphony of stinks, manure, smoke bodies. And your little sack of herbs is like bringing a slingshot to a dragon fight. You think of the nobles, their ambergris and silks, and wonder if their noses are any happier. Probably not. The church looms ahead, its bells tolling, calling the faithful and the fragrant to pray. You pass a woman braiding rosemary into her hair. A desperate bid to smell less like the barnyard. You consider it, but your hair is already an eggy disaster, and adding herbs might just make you a walking salad. Joke number 3. Why did the peasant skip perfume? Because no herb could hide the fact he lived next to a pigsty. You laugh, the sound soft, and clutch your pomander as you near the church. The priest is there, his robes gray with dust, preaching about spiritual cleanliness while smelling like old cheese. You nod, keeping your distance, and thank your cloves for small mercies. This scent survival is no noblesse. Luxury, no river dip, just a peasant is fight against a world that smells like defeat. You're back in the market. Now, the pomander warm against your chest, its herbs nearly spent. The village-s stinks are relentless, but you ray holding on one sniff at a time. The day-s grinding forward, and the next to task, maybe haggling with the baker or dodging Agnes' sachet advice, waits like a bad whiff. But for now, you're surviving your nose, a battlefield, your pomander, a fading shield, dreaming of a world where air doesn't fight back and deodorant isn't a fantasy. What if your shirt could save you from bathing altogether? You're weaving through the village market, your pomander is cloves, fading the stench of fish and manure, clinging like a bad rumor. The church bells fade behind you, their toll drowned by hawkers and barking dogs. Your tunic's heavy, your skin itchy from that eggy hair disaster and the twig you chewed for teeth. But beneath your rough outer layer, there's a secret weapon. A linen shift, thin and worn, hugging your skin like a faithful dog. In 1340, this scrap of fabric is your hygiene hero, soaking up sweat and grime so you can skip the river, the tub, and the priest see lectures. You're about to learn why linen was the medieval equivalent of a shower in a shirt. The mainstream fact is practical. Linen undergarments like shifts or tunics were worn by nearly everyone in the Middle Ages to absorb sweat and dirt, making bathing less necessary. You tug at your shift, its weave coarse but breathable, patched from years of use. It's not clean, nothing in this village is, but it's fresher than the wool overcoat that I've seen too many muddy days. You pause by a stall, the baker's wife eyeing your turnips. Her own shift peeking from her sleeve, gray but proud. Changing your linen. Maybe once a week is like hitting reset on hygiene. You slip behind a cart, pulling the shift tighter. grateful for its ability to take one for the team while your outer layers crust over. The quirky tidbit is odd. Some believed a clean linen shift could ward off evil spirits, a superstition noted in a 1360s sermon from York. Preachers claimed a fresh shift signaled a pure soul. Though your shift's more dirt than divine, picture you shaking out a patched linen, hoping it will fend off both fleas and demons while Agnes snorts from her doorway. You adjust your shift. Its hem frayed and feel it cling damp with the morning as sweat. It's not magic, but it is practical. Soaking up the worst of you so you don't scare the chickens or the saints. You keep moving the market, chaos swirling your linen, a quiet ally in a world that smells like defeat. Joke number 1. Why did the peasant love linen? Because it was the only thing keeping him from smelling like his pig. You chuckle. The sound soft and dodge a cart, its driver cursing as a wheel sticks in the mud. Your shift's doing its job, but it's a heavy lift. The linen, absorbent, sure, but it's no miracle worker. You are still a walking stew of sweat and village dust. Your pomander barely holding the line you spot. What his own shift patched to oblivion, haggling for ale. He grins his goat, nibbling a cabbage nearby. And you wonder if his linen is as tired as yours. Probably. In this village, a clean shift is a status symbol. A sign you've got your life together, or at least a spare. Historians still argue whether linen undergarments were a hygiene game-changer or just a bandage on a filthy world. Some say they reduced skin infections by keeping sweat off, outer clothes extending their wear. Others argue they were a placebo, giving the illusion of cleanliness in a society that bathed once a season. You're not sure, but your shift's holding the line, its weave heavy with grime, but not yet sprouting mushrooms. You tug it feeling a seam. Give and wince, replacing it, means hours at the loom, or begging Agnes for a scrap and her charity comes with a lecture. You keep walking the markets, din rising your linen, a shield against a world that doesn't believe in showers. Joke number 2. What's this, a medieval bath? A fresh linen shift and a dream of better days, you smirk, sidestepping a pile of something the goat left behind. The baker. His wife hands you a loaf, her fingers brushing your shift, her nose wrinkling. New shirt, she asks, skeptical. You nod, lying through your teeth and hurry on. The linen your armor, but it's taking hits. Every step through the market adds a layer, dust, sweat, a splash from a passing cart. You think of the nobles, their linen shifts white as snow, changed daily by servants. Yours is more battle-scarred, a veteran of too many days without a wash. The church looms in the distance, its shadow, a reminder of the priestess. Rants about purity. You adjust your shift, hoping it passes muster, though it's closer to grey than godly. Joke number 3. Why is linen the unsung hero? Because it takes the fall, so you don't have to face the priest. Snows, you laugh, the sound fading in the market, snoise and clutch your turnips tighter. The linen doing what it can, but it a losing battle, the village smells, fish smoke bodies. Press in and your shift is soaking it up, a sponge for a world that doesn't know. Deodorant, you're surviving one thread at a time in a place where cleanliness is a shirt you change when the moon's right. This linen life is no river dip, no noble soak, just a peasant hacked to dodge the bathhouse, sins and the stream, chill. You're back in the market now, your shift heavy, your pomander spent, the villages. Chaos is relentless, but your linens, holding on a quiet hero in a smelly war. The day pushing forward, and the next task, maybe hauling wood or dodging what goat, waits like a tax on your patience, but for now, you're as clean as a shirt can make you, dreaming of a world where laundry not a prayer and hygiene, not a hope stitched into cloth. Ever spent an evening combing bugs out of your hair like a monkey with a grudge? You're trudging away from the village market, your linen shift heavy with sweat, your pomander. A wilted memory against the stench of fish and filth, the sun's dipping, casting long shadows across the muddy lanes, the air cooling but still thick with the village's funk. Your turnips are bartered, swapped for a loaf that's more stone than bread, and your scalp is itching a relentless prickle that is not just dirt or egg residue from that hair-washing fiasco. In 1340, lice are your roommates uninvited and unbothered, and you're about to wage war with a comb and a prayer, dreaming of a scalp that doesn't he. Crawl. The mainstream fact is itchy. Lice were a universal plague in the Middle Ages, infesting rich and poor alike with bone or wooden combs. As the only defense, you duck into your hut, the fire a faint glow, the air smoky and stale. On the table, a bone comb waits its teeth fine and sharp, carved by Wattis' uncle before the last fever took him. You sit by the hearth, the dirt floor cold, and run your fingers through your hair, feeling the telltale scuttle of tiny feet. You grab the comb, its handle worn smooth, and start raking the teeth, snagging on tangles and straw. Each pass pulls out a louse, its body glinting in the firelight, and you flick it into the flames. The sizzle, a small victory. The quirky tidbit is bizarre. Some villagers believed shaving your head could banish lice and bad luck. A practice noted in a 1370s chronicle from Lincoln monks. Often went bald, partly for piety, partly for pest control, though their wigs sometimes became lice. Hotels picture you, razor in hand, tempted to go full friar. Tuck only to realize you freeze without your hair and look like a plucked chicken. You stick with the comb, your scalp stinging as you drag it through each louse. A reminder of a world where bugs are bolder than barons. You pause, crushing one between your nails, its pop louder than your patience, and keep combing the fire, crackling like it's cheering you on. Joke number 1. Why did the louse love your scalp? Because it was the coziest barn in the village. You chuckle, the sound soft, and rake harder, your hair shedding straw and bugs like a bad harvest. This isn't vanity. It's a survival. Lice spread fevers or so. Agnes swears, and you are not keen on testing her theory. You think of the nobles, their silken shifts and perfumed pomanders, and wonder if their lice are as stubborn. Probably. You spot a nit white and stubborn and pry it loose, flicking it into the fire. The comb-s relentless, but so are the lice. Never-ending siege on a scalp that s more battlefield than body part. Historians still argue whether lice were a health crisis or just a fact of life. Some say they spread diseases like typhus, worsening medieval mortality rates. Others argue people adapted treating lice like taxes. Annoying, but inevitable. You're leaning toward crisis, your scalp a red map of scratches. The comb's teeth clogged with debris. You pause, shaking it out, and glance at the door, where Agnes' shadow looms, her ladle gleaming. Combing again, she calls, smirking. Try boiling your cap. You nod, too itchy to argue, and keep raking each pass a small rebellion against a world where bugs rule and baths are sins. Joke number 2, what is a medieval spa day? A comb afire and a louse that laughs at your pain. You smirk, your scalp throbbing and calm on. The hut shadows dancing. The fire slow. The air colder, but you are locked in this war. Your hair a tangle of straw and suffering. You think of what is goat, probably lice-free and smug, and envy its simple life. The comb snags, pulling a strand, and you curse your voice, a rasp. Outside the village quiets the market, din fading, but your battle's just begun. You flick another louse, its sizzle, a fleeting win, and wonder if a bald head worth the chill. The comb's teeth are gritty now, a graveyard of nits and dreams. You shake it, the debris scattering, and keep going, your scalp raw but lighter. Agnes pokes her head in chewing fennel, her own cap a lice sanctuary. Give up yet? She asks, her smirk sharp. You grin, wincing, and wave the comb like a sword. Joke number 3. Why did the louse stick around? Because it knew you'd never afford a barber. Shave, you laugh. The sound echoing and set the comb down your hair a mess, but less crowded. You're not winning, not really, but you've fought, and in this village that's enough. This lice war is no nobles, soak no river dip, just a peasant. Grudge match with bugs that don't quit. You're back in the hut, now the fire dyeing your scalp, a tender map of effort. The village outside sleeps its smells and sounds, muted your comb. A silent trophy. The day fading, and the next task, maybe mending a net or dodging Agnes as boiling tips waits like a fresh itch. But for now, you're as bug-free as you all get. Dreaming of a world where scalps don't crawl and combs don't feel like knives. Ever dodged a chamber pot, its contents flung from a castle window? You stumbling out of your hut, your scalp still smarting from that lice-combing battle. The bone comb tucked in your pouch like a war trophy. The village is quieting the market. Stin fading the air, sharp with evening chill, and the ever-present whiff of manure. Your linen shift clings heavy with sweat, your pomander useless against the village sea funk. The sun is sinking, casting shadows across the muddy lanes, and you are headed to the tavern for a cup of ale. Your reward for surviving another day. But first you've got to navigate the village's idea of sanitation. A minefield of pits, pots, and prayers that makes your sponge bath seem downright civilized. The mainstream fact is grim. In the 14th century, most villages lacked proper sanitation with chamber pots and open pits serving as toilets. Their contents often dumped into streets or streams. You weave through the lane, eyes on the ground, dodging puddles that aren't just rainwater. Above a window creaks and you freeze. Heart pounding, Guardelou. A voice shouts medieval for watch out below, and you leap aside as a pot's contents splash nearby. The smell hitting like a punch. You curse your boots slipping and thank the saints you are. Quick, the tavern's in sight. Its glow warm, but the path's a gauntlet of waste-worn and otherwise, and you are no knight in shining armor, just a peasant with a nose for survival. The quirky tidbit is wild. Some villagers used moss or straw as toilet paper, though the wealthy might splurge on linen scraps. A 1360s manor record from Norfolk lists wool rags for the lordess. Privy while you were stuck with a handful of straw from your mattress. Picture you squatting behind a barn. Straw scratching like a bad decision, hoping it's cleaner than the pigsty nearby. You're not at that point yet, thank goodness. But the taverness. Privy looms a wooden shed with a hole that smells like it's plotting revenge. You hold your breath, your shift hiked up and pray for a quick visit. The straws rough, the smell unholy, and you're out faster than a thief at a market stall. Joke number 1. Why did the peasant dread the privy? Because it was a throne nobody wanted to sit on. You chuckle, the sound soft, and hurry toward the tavern, dodging another suspicious puddle. The village sets sanitation as a gamble. Chamber pots flung from windows, communal pits overflowing streams doubling as sewers. You pass a ditch, its contents glinting in the fading light, and wince. The Lordess Manor has a guardrobe, a fancy closet with a hole dropping waste into a moat. But you're stuck with the great outdoors or a pot under your bed. Last night you used yours, a chipped clay bowl, and dumped it at dawn, shouting, Guardelou to warn Agnes. She wasn't amused. Historians still argue whether medieval sanitation caused more disease than it prevented. Some say open pits and street dumping spread fevers like wildfire, especially during the Black Death. Others argue villagers adapted their immune systems, hardened by constant exposure. You're not sure, but the stench by the tavern's privy suggests the historians arguing, oh, big deal. Never smelled it. You push open the tavern door, the air inside thick with ale smoke and bodies. The barkeep, his apron greasier than a pig, backhands you a cup, his breath, a cloud of onions. You sip the ale, warm and sour, and try not to think about where the water came from. Joke number 2. What is a medieval toilet, a hole, a hope, and a smell that haunts your dreams? You smirk, settling onto a bench, the tavern. Snoys a dull roar. A man stumbles out to the privy, muttering, and you are glad you went first. The chamber pot under your bed, 's a last resort used when the night too cold or the wolves too bold, dumping it. A morning ritual, a sprint to the ditch with a shout to clear the lane. You've hit a stray dog once, its yelp louder than your guilt, and Agnes still hasn't forgiven you for splashing her doorstep. The tavern's privy, though, is a shared nightmare, its pit. A stew of everything the village ate. The ales, loosening your thoughts, the fire's glow, softening the room. Its edges. You glance at your shift, its linen soaked with the day. Its grime, and wonder if it's cleaner than the privy. Draw. Joke number 3. Why did the chamber pot get respect? Because it held the village's secrets better than the priest. You laugh. The sound fading in the taverns. Hum and sip again. The ale dulling the itch of your scalp, the sting of your straw-scraped skin. The village outside is a mess of mud and waste, but here in the tavern's haze you are almost content your nose numb to the worst of it. This toilet trial is no nobler soak, no river dip, just a peasant's dance with pits and pots. In a world where sanitation's a prayer, you are back in the tavern. Now the fire warm. The crowd loud, your shift, a silent hero. The village, as smells linger. But the ale helps a small mercy in a day of dodging filth. The night's closing in, and the next task, maybe bartering for a candle or dodging Agnes' glare, waits like a fresh pile in the lane. But for now, you're as clean as a pot can make you, dreaming of a world where toilets flush and straw. It's just for sleeping. Ever scrubbed with soap that feels like punishment and smells like a wet dog. You're slumped in the tavern, the ale's warm buzz fading the fire. Glow a faint shield against the village's evening chill. Your chamber pot, dodge and privy. Ordeal linger like a bad. Taste your linen shift heavy with tavern smoke and market grime. The bar keeps wiping cups with a rag dirtier than your boots, and you re-itching, scalp skin sole, for something cleaner than a twig or a river dip. Back at your hut, a lump of soap waits a greyish blob. What traded for a turnip? In 1340, soap's no luxury. It's as a gritty warrior in the fight against filth, and you're about to learn why it's more foe than friend. The mainstream fact is rough. Medieval soap made from animal fat and wood ash was harsh, used mostly for laundry or desperate hygiene, not daily baths. You stumble home, the lane dark, the village quiet, save for a dog, yes. Bark and Agnes' distant cackle, your hut as smoky. The fire barely alive, the air thick with straw and stew. You grab the soap, its surface waxy, its smell a mix of tallow, and campfire gone wrong. You dip it in a bucket, the water cold from your sponge bath, and rub it between your hands. It barely lathers, more grit than glide, and you scrub your arms, the soap stinging like a wasp with a grudge. Your skin's red raw. A map of effort in a world that doesn't believe in bubbles. The quirky tidbit is odd. Some monks added herbs like lavender to soap, believing it pleased God and purified the body. A 1370s monastery record from Canterbury mentions holy soap for washing before Mass, though it still burned like sin. Picture you rubbing this tallow lump, hoping for a whiff of lavender, only to smell like a sheep left out in the rain. You grimace, the soap slipping its grit catching on your knuckles. It's no noble's Castile soap, that olive oil. Dream from Spain reserved for lords who don't stink of turnips. You keep scrubbing your hands, stinging the soap, a bully that cleans by intimidation, not kindness. Joke number 1. Why'd the peasant use soap? Because it was the only thing meaner than the dirt. You chuckle, the sound soft in the hut, gloom and move to your face, the soap burning your cheeks. This isn't about smelling like a rose. It's about not scaring the pigs when you herd them tomorrow. You think of the bathhouse, its steamy gossip, and the Lord's herb-scented tub, both as distant as a kingness. Mercy, the soaps for emergencies, like when Agnes threatened to bar you from her stew for smelling like a midden. You rinse the cold water. A shock and watch the grey suds swirl, carrying off dirt and a layer of skin. Historians still argue whether medieval soap helped or harmed. Some say its alkaline bite killed bacteria, reducing infections in a filthy world. Others argue it irritated skin, causing more problems than it solved. You were leaning toward harm. Your arms throbbing the soap, sting lingering like a bad sermon. You pause, dunking the lump, and glance at the door where Agnes's shadow looms, her ladle a silent threat. "Soap." "Eh," she calls, smirking, "waste of good fat." You shrug, too sore to argue, and keep scrubbing each pass, a grudging nod to hygiene in a village where filth. The fire crackles, its light dim your hut, a battlefield of grime and grit. Joke number 2. What's medieval soap? A lump of pain that smells like a barnyard. It's revenge. You smirk, your hands raw, and try your neck. The soap flaking like ash. The bucket-s water is sludge, a stew of your sponge bath. Eggy hair wash, and now this. You think of what his goat, probably cleaner than you, and wonder if he uses soap or just rolls in the straw. The village outside sleeps, its smells muted, but your hut's a war zone, the soap, your only weapon. You rinse again, the cold biting your skin tight and angry. It's clean, sort of, but at what cost? Your hands shake the soap, a tyrant you tempted to toss. The fire pops, a spark landing on the floor, and you stamp it out. The soap slipping to the dirt. You grab it, cursing, and finish your arms. The sting a reminder of why baths are for fools and nobles. Agnes pokes her head in her hair. A straw crown, chewing fennel, look like you fought a bear, she says, her smirk sharp. You grin, wincing, and set the soap down its lump, a sullen trophy. Joke number 3. Why did the soap hate you? Because it knew you'd rather smell like pigs than use it again. You laugh. The sound echoing, and step toward the door. The village's quiet calling. This soap struggle is no river dip, no noble-ess. Soap just a peasant's clash with a lump that claims by cruelty. You are back in the hut now. The fire dead your skin, a red map of effort. The village sleeps, its smells waiting your shift. A silent shield, the night-s deepening, and the next task, maybe chopping wood or dodging Agnes's stew, looms like a fresh sting. But for now, you are as clean as soap can make you, dreaming of a world where bubbles don't burn and hygiene. It's not a battle you lose to tallow. Ever beat your clothes clean with rocks by a river that's as dirtier than you are? You are stumbling out of your hut, the sting of that tallow soap still burning your skin, the lump abandoned by the hearth like a bad memory. The village is hushed, the night is chill, creeping through the lanes, the air heavy with smoke and the faint reek of your privy pot. Your linen shift, your hygiene hero, is heavy with sweat, market dust, and the ghost of that eggy hair wash. It's laundry day or close enough, and your tunicus, begging for a wash before it walks off on its own. You grab at a sack of turnips and head to the river, where cleanliness is a fight you're not sure you will win. The mainstream fact is brutal. In the 14th century, laundry was a back-breaking chore done by hand, in rivers or tubs, often using urine or ash to lift stains. You trudged to the stream, the same one where Watt and his goat splashed its banks slick with mud. The water glints murky with village runoff, sewage soap, and who knows what from the miller's yard. You kneel, your knees sinking, and dunk your shift. The cold biting your hands like a tax collector's glare. A wooden paddle borrowed from Agnes lies nearby, its surface worn from years of beating cloth. You scrub the linen, heavy, the water turning grey, as if it's mocking your effort. The quirky tidbit is grim. Villagers use timber lye, stale urine collected in pots, as a detergent valued for its ammonia. A 1360s record from Bristol mentions washerwomen soaking clothes in urine to whiten them. A stench you can unsmell. Picture you pouring a jug of lye. Its odor sharp enough to wake a saint and praying it cleans your shift without making you gag. You stick to water and ash, though scraping a handful from the hearth as edge its grit mixing with the river is slime. You rub it in the linen, fraying your hands raw. The river is no ally, its current tugging like it wants your shirt for itself. Joke number 1, why'd the peasant hate laundry day? Because the river was filthier than the clothes it was meant to clean. You chuckle, the sound soft, and swing the paddle, beating the shift against a flat rock. The thwack echoes a rhythm of labor. Your arms aching like you've wrestled Watt's goat. You think of the nobles, their servants scrubbing silks while they sip wine. Your laundry. It's a solo fight, no servants, no wine. Just you. A paddle and a river. That's more sewer than stream. Agnes is there too. Her apron soaked her ladle, tucked in her belt, cursing the Miller S. ox for fouling the water upstream. Historians still argue whether medieval laundry improved hygiene or just spread disease. Some say washing linen reduced skin infections, keeping shifts fresher than skin. Others argue rivers used as sewers redeposited filth, making laundry a wash in name only. You leaning toward the latter. Your shift no cleaner. The water, a soup of village sins, you beat harder, the paddle splintering your hands. Numb, Agnes glances over, smirking. Harder, or it will smell like you, she says. Her own pile of rags, a testament to her arm strength. You nod, too tired to snap back and keep pounding the river, splashing your shift. A soggy flag of defeat. Joke number 2. What's his medieval laundry? A rock, a river, and a dream of not smelling like a privy. You smirk, your arms burning, and rinse the shift, the water swirling grey. The ash helped maybe, but the stains are stubborn, baked in by days of sweat and market mud. You think of Watt, his shift patched to oblivion, probably washed in the same river, and wonder if his goat is cleaner. The sun's gone, the air colder, the river-s chill seeping into your bones. You wring the shift water, dripping, and spread it on a bush, hoping it dries before the frost claims it or the goat takes a nibble. The village is dark now, the lane quiet, save for a dog's bark, and Agnes' muttering. You haul your paddle, your hands blistered, and trudge home, the shift left to the night. 's mercy. Joke number 3. Why'd the river laugh at your laundry? Because it knew you'd smell the same tomorrow. You laugh, the sound fading, and duck into your hut. The fire dead, the air heavy, your clean shift, if you can call it that, waits outside a damp hope in a world where filth wins. Laundry. No noble, soak no river dip, just a peasant. As war with water, and will fought on a bank that's more foe than friend. You slump by the hearth, your hands raw, your tunic damp from splashing. The village sleeps, its smells lingering your shift. A silent soldier in the fight for hygiene. The night as deep, and the next task, maybe fetching wood or dodging Agnes' lie lecture, looms like a fresh stain, but for now you are as clean as a river can make you, dreaming of a world where laundry's not a battle and clothes don't fight back. You close your eyes, the hut's quiet. Wrapping you, the memory of that gritty paddle, a reminder of a day spent wrestling filth in a village that never surrenders. What if your dirty shift helped unleash a plague that killed half of Europe? You re-slumped in your hut. Hands blistered from beating your tunic by that filthy river, the night is chill seeping through the thatch. The village is silent, save for a distant cough and the rustle of straw underfoot. Your linen shift, damp and draped outside, is no cleaner than the stream it came from, its patches, a map of your labor. The soap as sting the lice, itch the privy, as stench. They're all part of your world. A world where hygiene's a gamble, but now in 1347 a shadow looms. The Black Death, a killer that thrives on filth and fear, and you're about to see how your village's habits helped it spread like wildfire. The mainstream fact is harrowing. The Black Death, which ravaged Europe from 1347 to 1351, killed 30% of the population, worsened by poor sanitation and hygiene practices like shared water and unwashed clothes. You light a rush candle, its flame weak, and peer out the door, the village dark under a moonless sky. A neighbor's cough echoes sharp and wet, and you flinch, clutching your pomander, its cloves long spent. The plague's here, whispered in the market, seen in the fevered eyes of the baker's boy. You think of the river where you washed your shift beside Agnes. Rags the water, a stew of waste that stream your privy pit, your unwashed hands, they all accomplices carrying death from hut to hut. The quirky tidbit is eerie. Some villagers believed wearing garlic around their necks could ward off the plague. A superstition noted in a 1348 chronicle from London. Picture you stringing cloves on twine smelling like a stew. Nobody wants, hoping it'll scare the pestilence away. You tried it once after. Wat swore it saved his cousin, but the garlic only drew flies, and Agnes scorn. You toss the pomander aside its herbs, useless, and huddle by the candle, its light flickering. The plague doesn't care about garlic or prayers, it loves the filth. You can't escape the lice in your shift, the rats scurrying through your straw mattress, each a tiny herald of doom. Joke number 1. Why did the peasant wear garlic? Because it was cheaper than surviving the plague. You chuckle, the sound soft, and pull your shift closer. Its dampness, a reminder of the river. Its betrayal, the village's hygiene or lack of it, is a perfect storm. You share buckets, dip in the same stream crowd into the tavern. As smoky haze, the Black Death feasts on this, spreading through fleas, filth, and fear. You think of the bathhouse now boarded up, blamed for opening pores to disease the priestess. Sermons warning against baths echo in your mind, but you wonder if yes, coughing too. His robe's as dirty as his dogma. Historians still argue whether hygiene alone fueled the plagues as spread, or if trade routes and climate played bigger roles. Some say cleaner habits like washing hands could have slowed the death toll. Others argue medieval sanitation was so dire, no one stood a chance. You're leaning toward despair. Your hut, a trap of straw, and smoke the village. A petri dish of pestilence, you blow out the candle, the dark heavy, and listen for that cough. It's closer now, maybe maybe Agnes. You pull your shift tight, it's linen, no shield against fleas carrying death. The plagues, a ghost invisible but everywhere, and your hygiene, it's a flimsy sword against it. Joke number 2. What's a medieval plague cure? A garlic necklace and a hope you are not next. You smirk, the darkness swallowing the sound, and lie on your mattress, the straw poking through. You think of the market where hands touched bread coins each other, spreading more than gossip, the privy pit, the chamber pot, the river. They're all links in a chain, pulling the plague deeper into the village. You scratch a flea bite your scalp, still raw from the comb, and wonder if it's carrying more than itch, the fierce, worse than the filth. A paranoia that makes every cough a sentence, every fever a farewell. The village is a tomb waiting to fill its hygiene, a silent killer. You close your eyes and the darkness thick and pray for dawn, though it brings no safety. Agnes's cough cuts through sharp and close, and you flinch, your heart racing. Joke number 3. Why did the plague love the village? Because it found a home dirtier than its fleas. You laugh a rasp and curl tighter, the shift damp against your skin. The Black Death isn't just a disease. It's a mirror, showing your world, its flaws, its filth, its fears. You're surviving barely in a village where hygiene's a lie and death's a neighbor. This plague panic is no noble's soak, no river dip, just a peasant's dread in a world where dirt kills. You're in your hut now. The darkness complete the village, scoffs a grim lullaby. The night is endless, and the next task may be bartering for bread or dodging Agnes, as fever waits like a fresh wound, but for now you are as clean as fear allows. Dreaming of a world where water kills germs, not people and fleas done to carry fate. The straw shifts, a rat scurries, and you hold your breath. The plague's shadow, closer than the dawn you pray for. Ever wondered if America's pioneers smelled as bad as medieval peasants you were curled in your hut? The Black Death's shadow heavy your straw mattress, prickling the village, scoffs a grim chorus in the night, the plague. Sphere lingers your shift, damp your hands roar from laundry. It's futile fight, but let is slip across time trading 1347. It's mud for 1670s. New England, where colonists built a new world that frankly stank as much as yours. You are now in a timber cabin in Massachusetts, the air sharp with pine and privies your linen shirt. Still the hero, clinging like a bad habit, hygiene here's no better than your village, and you're about to sniff the proof, dodging the same filth that fueled Europe's plagues. The mainstream fact is telling, early American colonists, like their medieval cousins, had poor hygiene with limited bathing due to scarce water, harsh winters, and Puritan suspicions of cleanliness. You wake in your cabin, the floor dirt, the hearth smoky, its embers barely warm. A bucket by the door holds water, hauled from a creek, its surface filmy with frost and leaves. You splash your face, the cold biting your shirt, stiff with sweat from chopping wood. Bathing is a myth. Maybe once a season if the creek is not frozen, or the preacheress not ranting about vanity, eh? 1671 Boston record notes, settlers seldom wash. Fearing it, weakens echoing the medieval dread of open pores, you re-shivering your skin a map of grime and starting to miss your village's river, polluted as it was. The quirky tidbit is odd. Some colonists used corn cobs as toilet paper, a practice mentioned in 17th century diaries from Virginia. Picture you squatting in a privy behind the cabin, a cob in hand, its roughness, a far cry from your village, moss or straw. You wince the cob cold and hurry back. Your shirt, hitched to the privy, stench chasing you like a bad debt. The cabin, snow refuge, its air thick with smoke sweat and the faint whiff of last night's beans. You grab a rag, wiping your hands, but it is dirtier than the creek, and you are pretty sure the rats in the corner are cleaner than you. Hygiene-s a losing battle just like in 1347, and the new world smells suspiciously like the old one. Joke number 1. Why did the colonist skip bathing? Because he thought the creek was scarier than his smallpox scars. You chuckle, the sounds soft in the dim cabin, and pull on a wool coat, its fibers heavy with wood smoke. The colony's a patchwork of cabins, fields and mud, much like your village, but with harsher winters and holier sermons. You step outside the air, stinging, and dodge a puddle that's more privy than rain. A neighbor, Goody Mary, hauls water, her bonnet askew, muttering about the minister. Yes, fever. You nod, keeping your distance, the plague's memory sharp. The creek's your wash house, your bath, your sewer, and you not fooling anyone about cleanliness. Historians still argue whether colonial hygiene was worse than Europe, or just differently bad, shaped by wilderness and faith. Some say the lack of bathhouses and urban density kept diseases less deadly than the Black Death. Others argue cramped cabins and shared buckets spread fevers like wildfire, rivaling medieval plagues. You're leaning toward worse, the creek. Stench, a rival to your village ditch. You kneel by the hearth, dunking your shirt, the water icy, your hands numb, a lump of lye. Soap harsher than your village. Tallow sits nearby, but it is for laundry, not skin. Too brutal, like scrubbing with a musket barrel. You rub the shirt, the lye burning, and think of Agnes, her paddle by the river, less pious, but no less filthy. Joke number 2. What's a colonial bath? A splash, a shiver, and a shirt that smells like a barnyard. Regret. You smirk, wringing the shirt, water dripping onto the floor. Goody. Mary pokes her head in her hands, red, her own shirt, grey as sin. Washing again, she asks. Skeptical. You nod, lying through chattering teeth, and hang the damp shirt by the fire, its linen steaming like it has. Resentful. The Puritans frown on cleanliness, their sermons echoing, "Your priest," rants, but you were stubborn, or maybe just vain, the kepi's smoky. The rats bold, and you are wondering if your village lice were friendlier than these fleas biting like they've got a lease on your shirt, the damp linen clinging, and step outside, the night deep, the colony quiet. The creek's murmur calls a reminder of your filth, but you are done fighting it. Hygiene's a dream, and you are surviving one cob at a time, dreaming of a world where water is clean and sermons done. Stink letters trade your smoky colonial cabin for a city so old it makes Boston look like a toddler. You eye blinking in the dawn light, the Massachusetts chill fading your linen shirt, still damp from that corncob privy ordeal. Suddenly, you are standing on a dusty street, the air warm, the sun baking mud brick walls. Welcome to Mohenjo-Daro, 2500 BCE, a jewel of the Indus Valley where hygiene wasn't. Tit a prayer, but a plan. Your boots caked from colonial mud tread a grid of roads straighter than a Puritaness. Frown, you're no settler now. You're a wanderer in a city with plumbing that make your old village weep, and you're about to see how ancients lived cleaner than your 1670 neighbors. This place is no haphazard camp. Streets run north, south, east, west, like a checkerboard drawn by a god with a ruler. You pass houses, their bricks, uniform, their walls, smooth, no straw or dung patches like your medieval hut. The mainstream fact is stunning. Mohenjo-Daro had an advanced drainage system with covered sewers and household toilets unmatched in Europe until the 19th century. You peer into a courtyard, spotting a clay pipe, snaking from a latrine to an underground drain. No chamber pots here. No guard loo to dodge. You smile, imagining Agnes, sladle frozen mid-swing, her privy pit outclassed by a city 4,000 years old. This isn't just hygiene. It's engineering a quiet boast carved in clay. You wander on the street bustling, a merchant hawks, beads his hands clean, his spout bright. No lice comb needed here, no tallow soap, as sting. The quirky tidbit is curious. Some homes had private wells, a luxury noted in archaeological digs, suggesting even common folk drank cleaner water than your colonial creek. Picture you turning a rope pulley, hauling up water clear as glass, not the murky sludge you shared with goat. You pause by a well, it's stone cool, and splash your face, the water a shock of purity. It's tempting to stay, but the city calls. Its streets a maze of order where filth doesn't rule. You'd think a place this tidy had a king barking orders. But no palaces loom, no statues gloat. Historians still argue whether Mohenjo-Daro was ruled by councils or consensus. A society where drains mattered more than crowns. You're leaning towards councils, the city. It's calm, too practical for a tyrant. Swim, you pass a great bath, a massive pool, sunk into the earth, its steps worn by feet long gone, maybe it is for rituals, maybe just a cool dip on a hot day. Either way, it's cleaner than your village's river or Boston's harbors. You grin, imagining a Puritan preacher fainting at the sight of such vanity. Cleanliness here isn't Sinet's survival built into every brick, the market hums, stalls piled with grain pottery. Weights so precise they do shame a colonial scales. You weave through your shirt lighter in the heat. The city's order a balm after your plague-panicked village. A woman sweeps her doorstep, the dust vanishing into a drain. No privy slop in sight, you'd laugh, but it's humbling. This ancient street outshines your 1670s colony, where mud and smallpox were neighbors. Try telling Goody Mary her creek's a sewer compared to this, and she'd chase you with a broom faster than you can say, "Indoor plumbing." You pause by a house, its latrine a marvel, a seat over a drain that whisks waste away. No corn cobs, no straw, just clay and cleverness. You think of your medieval privy, its stench a lifelong foe, and shake your head. These folks, 4,000 years ago, knew more about hygiene than your Puritan neighbors who'd rather pray than wash. The city's quiet. Now the sun climbing its bricks warm under your hand. You were a guest in a world where drains were art, where cleanliness wasn't. A gamble but a given, a legacy buried under sand, until diggers found it and gasped. The street stretches on the city, scrid a silent song of order. You're a cleaner here, or feel it the dust less gritty than colonial mud. The Indus whispers nearby, its water-feeding wells. Not privies, you'd stay, but time pulls your shirt, a reminder of a smelly past. Mohenjo-daro is a dream. Its drains a taunt to your village as ditch your colony, as creek you re-surviving one step at a time in a tale where ancients outsmarted your filth. Dreaming of a day when plumbing's a right, not a relic lost to sand. Ever walked a street so grand it feels like gods paved it themselves? You stepping away from Mohenjo-daro, tidy drains their clay pipes, fading like a desert mirage, your linen shirt still prickling with the ghost of colonial fleas. The air shimmers heavy with heat and the scent of river silt, and suddenly you are in Babylon. 6th century BCE, where streets dawn to just lead to markets. They carry prayers. Your boots scuffed from New England. Smud tread a path of sun-baked clay, its tiles gleaming blue as a summer sky. This is no medieval village ditch or Puritan puddle. It's the processional way. A holy road that to make a Boston planner spill his ink, you're a wanderer now caught in a city where hygiene and faith are built into every brick. The Euphrates glints nearby, its waters feeding canals that keep the city sour stench at bay. A trick your old village never learned, you are on a street wide enough for chariots flanked by walls of glazed tiles, lions carved in fierce blues and golds. Babylon, snow haphazard sprawl it. It's a masterpiece of planning, zoned with temples, homes and markets, as neat as a Puritan. Ledger, the Ishtar Gate towers ahead, its arches a riot of color, each lion glaring like it knows your shirt. It's dirtier than the river. You chuckle, imagining Agnes as ladle waving off such pagan frippery. But the gates, majesty hushes you. Its tiles a hymn to a king who built for gods and glory. You weave through the crowd priests, chanting traders, hawking figs. Their tunics cleaner than your medieval shift. Babylon's processional way built under Nebuchadnezzar. Was the city as sacred spine used for festivals like the Akitu New Year, where statues of Marduk paraded to the ziggurat? You picture it, drums pounding incense swirling the street alive with cheers. The mainstream fact is dazzling. This road paved around 600 BCE wasn't just a path, but a stage linking the divine to the daily. Its canals whisking waste away better than your village's privy pit. You pause the tiles warm and feel a pang for your colonial creek, where filth was a neighbor, not a guest sent packing. The quirky tidbit is curious. Many bricks here bear Nebuchadnezzar. Its name stamped in cuneiform, a royal signature found in digs across Iraq. You crouch, tracing a brick, its etchings sharp, and grin at the king's ego. Imagine a colonial governor carving his name on every Boston cobble, only to be plowed under by progress. The crowd jostles a woman, basket brushing your shirt, its linen, a sad contrast to Babylonian weaves you trade a turnip for. There looms but your shirt as a survivor, patched from medieval mud to Puritan dust, the air thick with myrrh, drowning the river's tang. And you attempted to linger fleas, and all scholars still bicker over Babylon's streets. Were they built to awe the heavens, or bully the neighbors? You are betting on both the processional way, too bold for mere traffic. You pass a temple, its steps worn by pilgrims, priests scattering grain like it's confetti. The ziggurat looms a stepped tower that dwarfs your village church, its shadow cool against the sun. It's bite you'd laugh, picturing a Puritan fainting at such heathen splendor. But the city's order humbles you. Canals gleam no privy. Slop in sight, a hygiene your medieval ditch could only dream of. The Black Death as shadow. So heavy in your village feels distant here, though rats still scurry a reminder. No city's perfect. You pause by a canal, its water sluggish, but cleaner than your colonial slop. A man washes jars, his hands deft, no corn cobs or straw needed. You'd give a colonial penny to see Goody Mary face this city. She'd clutch her bonnet and pray for salvation from such cleanliness. Babylon's not flawless. Dust settles markets, stink of fish. But it's a league beyond your plague, panicked village where filth was fate. You keep walking the processional way, stretching its tiles a path to the divine. The crowd thins a priest's chant fading, and you feel small. A peasant in a city built for eternity. Your shirt a rag against its glory. The ziggurat's shadow falls, its steps climbing to stars you will never reach. You crane your neck dizzy and think of your medieval priest, his sermons sour as his robes. Babylon's faith is louder. Its streets a prayer. You can walk. Not whisper you disstay, but time tugs your shirt. Itching the Euphrates murmur a lullaby. This city's a vision. Its canals a taunt to your village. Smud its tiles, a boast your colony couldn't match, you re-surviving one step at a time, dreaming of a world where streets don just shine but save where hygiene's a plan. Not a plea lost in the dust. Ever wandered a city where streets chase the stars themselves? You are leaving Babylon's blue-tiled grandeur. Its processional way, fading your linen shirt, still scratching with the ghosts of medieval lice and colonial dust. The air shifts warm and dry, scented with agave and earth. You ray in Teotihuacan, 500 CE, central Mexico, where the sun burns fierce and the city's grid feels like a map to the heavens. Your boots worn from Babylon's. Bricks tread a boulevard wider than a Puritaness. Scowl flanked by pyramids that dwarf your village church. This isn't your muddy 1340 lane or Boston's slushy paths. It's the Avenue of the Dead. A cosmic spine that to make Agnes drop her ladle in awe. The city stretches its streets tilted 15.5 degrees off north, as if following a celestial compass. You no peasant now, just a wanderer in a metropolis of 100,000 souls, its stones whispering order. The mainstream fact is staggering. Teotihuacan's urban layout, built around 500 CE, was planned with astronomical precision, its Avenue of the Dead, aligning with the Pleiades and sacred mountains. You walk the avenue 2 miles long, its dust coating your boots. Pyramids looming like silent gods. The Pyramid of the Sun towers to your right, its steps steep, its shadow cool. You imagine priests climbing, chanting their robes vivid against the stone, while markets hum with maize and obsidian cleaner than your medieval ditch. You pass a plaza. Vendors hawking pottery, their hands free of the grime that plagued your village. The quirky tidbit is curious. Some homes had murals of jaguars and feathered serpents painted in reds and blues, suggesting even common folk lived with art, as found in archaeological digs. Picture you pausing by a wall where a serpent's eyes gleam, wishing your hut had half this flair instead of straw and fleas. You grin, imagining a Puritan preacher clutching his Bible at such pagan splendor. His sermon lost in the dust, the Avenue alive, families bartering, children darting, no privy slop or chamber pots here. Just drains channeling rainwater like a colonial pipe dream. The city's grid is no accident. Its blocks neat housing clans in compounds with shared patios. You'd laugh thinking of your village's haphazard lanes where pigs planned better than people. Scholars still debate whether Teotihuacan's layout was religious or practical, a cosmic map or a ruler. Swim, you are betting on faith. The avenue's alignment, too precise for chance, its pyramids pointing to stars your priest would call heresy. You pause by a canal, its water clear, no match for your plague-ridden stream. A woman washes maize, her hands deft, and you are struck by the order. Floods controlled waste whisked away a hygiene your 1670 cabin could only envy. The Pyramid of the Moon looms ahead, its steps worn as silent. Twin to the sun, you crane your neck dizzy, the stones warm under your hand. The city feels alive, its grid a pulse, its people cleaner than your medieval neighbors who'd rather pray than wash. You'd give a turnip to see Goody Mary face this avenue. She'd faint before the first pyramid, muttering about idolatry and clean drains. The market buzzes stalls piled with beans, feathers, tools, no lice combs or tallow soap in sight. Your shirt's a relic. It's linen patched, but here you feel grimy. A peasant out of place in a city built for eternity. You wander a compound, its walls painted with jaguars, its patio swept no straw, mattresses or rats. The air is dry, the sun relentless, but the drains work. A marvel. Your colonial creek never mastered. You think of Babylon, tiled glory, Mohenjo-Daro-esque pipes, and wonder why your village couldn't manage a ditch that didn't stink. The avenue stretches its stones warm, leading to temples where priests burn copal. Its smoke sweeter than your tavern. Haze you day stay. But time pulls your shirt. Itching the city's order a taunt to your filthy past, Teotihuacan. 'S a dream, its grid a starlit hymn, making your 1340 mud and 1670 slush seem like a bad joke. The sun dips shadows stretching the avenue, quieting. You pause, dust settling on your boots, and feel small. A wanderer in a city that mapped the skies before Columbus sailed. You did trade a colonial penny to bring this hygiene home, but your village priest would burn it as heresy. Teotihuacan's not perfect. Dust clings market smell of sweat, but it's a league beyond your privy pits and plague fears. You're surviving one step at a time, dreaming of a world where cities align with stars, where drains don't betray. And hygiene's a plan. Not a prayer lost in the desert. It's heat. Ever wondered what a medieval flea can teach your cozy bedroom? You were stepping off Teotihuacan, a starlit avenue, its pyramids fading into dusk, your linen shirt heavy with the dust of Babylon, Mohenjo-Daro and a colonial privy. Shame the air cools soft as a whisper, and you lie back in your modern world tucked under a quilt. The hum of a fan, a far cry from 1340s roosters. You've trudged through muddy villages, shivered in icy streams, and marveled at ancient drains. But now it's time to pause, to sift through the grime of history for lessons that make your hot shower feel like a miracle. This isn't just a tale of filth. It's a mirror, showing why your clean sheets are worth more than a king's ransom. You sink into your pillow, the memory of Agnes S. ladle and what is goat lingering like a bad smell. The mainstream fact is humbling. Ancient cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Teotihuacan, with their drains and wells, prioritized hygiene in ways medieval Europe forgot, inspiring modern plumbing that keeps your tap water clear. You think of Mohenjo-Daro as clay pipes whisking waste away while your village ditch festered. Your bathroom with its gleaming tiles owes a nod to those bricks laid 4,000 years ago by hands that knew clean water wasn't a luxury, but a lifeline. You grin, imagining a Puritan splashing in a creek baffled by a flushed toilet, but the lesson's clear. Hygiene's a hard-won gift, not a given. The quirky tidbit is odd. Medieval peasants sometimes slept in linen shifts to keep their beds less buggy, a habit noted in 14th century household guides. Picture you back in your hut, pulling on a shift to fend off fleas, hoping it to save your straw mattress from becoming a zoo. You chuckle, picturing Agnes muttering about fancy bedding while her own shift crawled with lice. Your modern bed with its crisp sheets and bug-free bliss is a distant cousin to that shift, a reminder that even small habits like changing linens echo across centuries. You stretch the quilt soft and feel a pang for those peasants, their sleep. A battle, your mattress wins every night. Scholars still debate whether ancient urban planning shaped modern cities or just dazzled us with lost dreams. Some say Teotihuacan, S-Grid inspired urban engineers, while others argue medieval chaos birthed our messy metropolises. You are betting on the ancients, their star-aligned streets, a blueprint for order. Your village never grasped. You think of Babylon's tiled glory, its canals cleaner than your colonial slop, and wonder why it took so long to learn. Your town with its sewers and sidewalks feels like a love letter to those cities. Their bricks a quiet nudge to keep filth at bay. You'd laugh. Imagining Goody Mary facing a city planner, she'd clutch her bonnet and pray for simpler mud. You roll over the fan. Hum a lullaby. The night soft outside your window. The Black Death, as shadow so heavy in your village feels distant now. Its lesson sharp. Filth kills, but planning saves. You think of your medieval bucket, its water a gamble, and your colonial creek a sludgy foe. Modern pipes unseen but steady carry that ancient wisdom. Making your sink a marvel, Mohenjo-Daro would salute you to trade a turnip to show what your faucet. He'd call it witchcraft and run for his goat. The past is grime from lice to privies, taught us to build better, to wash smarter, to sleep cleaner. And you were grateful your quilt a fortress no flea could breach. You close your eyes, the room dark, the fans breeze cool. History is not just a story, it is as a warning, a nudge to cherish the shower, the soap, the sheets that don itch. You think of Teotihuacan. Priests, their steps star-bound and feel a kinship, their dreams of order alive in your quiet street. Your journey is done from muddy lanes to cosmic grids, each step a lesson in surviving filth. You smile picturing Agnes's ladle, chasing a city engineer, but sleep is calling soft as a whisper. And you lie ready to drift your bed a haven the past could only dream. Now let the past fade, gentle as a candle's flicker. You're safe, tucked in the hum of your fan. Soft echo of ancient winds. The village's mud, Babylon's tiles, Teotihuacan as stars, they are distant now. Their smells and struggles a quiet tale. Your sheets are smooth. Your room still no fleas to fight, no privies to dodge history. It's taught you this. Every clean breath, every clear drop is a gift won by hands that laid bricks and dreamed of better. You're warm, the night kind, the world outside a hum of order. Let your thoughts drift soft as rivers silt to a place where drains work, where water flows, where sleep comes easy. The past is, grime is gone, its lessons yours. A whisper to cherish the simple, your bed, your breath, your peace, you re-slipping now. The quilt, heavy the dark. A friend let go, let history rest its cities silent, their streets yours to wander in dreams, sleep. It's here a tide as gentle as starlight, carrying you to a dawn where filth, some memory, and comfort. Home good night, dear wanderer. Till the next tale, sweet dreams end of script. Sweet dream.